Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen of interwebs land. Welcome to Miyagi Mornings, episode 90, as we head on toward our centennial episode. Today we're going to talk about making decisions. I think I cover parts of this here and there throughout the entire series. I certainly talk about how to make intelligent decisions on the show, but I don't know that I've really kind of broke down a process for this for quite a while. This is probably going to bloody some noses because when I pick some specific examples, you won't agree with me. I don't care if you agree with me. I don't even think you have to agree with me. The reason it'll piss off some people, though, is because when I point out the process, they'll realize they didn't do it. And therefore, your belief or your decision or what you think somebody else should be doing is what we call an article of faith. It's not a rational, sane decision. Let's start out with a big one that's a perfect example of this right now. Should you or should you not get one of the experimental, emergency authorized use approved vaccines? And if you do so, should you take the additional risk of using what is a gene therapy and was called a gene therapy by the FDA all the way up until this year, or actually last year, when they changed the definition of what a gene therapy was so that they could get the vaccines approved as vaccines? Now, that's all factual. If you're already triggered, what I'm going to tell you is you don't know facts about this situation. And if you were to go and look up the SEC filing that Moderna filed with the Security and Exchange Commission when they wanted to become a public company, talking about the exact technology they used to produce the Moderna vaccine, right now you will see them say that it is a gene therapy as regulated by the FDA. So that is a thing. That's a fact that maybe you didn't know. I will put a link to that document. I believe it's page 19, but if I'm wrong, I'll put which page it is right next to that link where you can go read it. That's an example of something you didn't know. Does that mean you shouldn't get it? No. No, but maybe before you decide to have 2 injections of a vaccine put in your body, you should have known that. Don't you think you should know that? Don't you think you should know what they're putting in you and how it works and why they say it works and like what is the actual success rate when they say it's 95% effective? What does that mean? Don't you think you should know that? I mean, don't you think you should know those things? This is what I'm saying about decision-making processes. The average person, when they make a decision, if you said, look, here's a piece of paper, just a random piece of paper, here's a pen. I don't have a good pen for this. This is a yellow highlight marker. I want you to take this and I want you to sit down and I want you to write just whatever will fit on one page that you actually know about this thing you're making a decision on. If you left the room, played a little Jeopardy music in your head, came back after about 5 minutes, this is what the piece of paper would generally look like. Maybe they would do a little picture of their dog on it. The average person today makes decisions based on what the TV tells them and their personal prejudices and biases. If they're a Republican, they're going to come down on the dominant conservative side of the issue. If they're a Democrat, they're going to come down on the dominant liberal side of the decision. There's places where that actually makes sense. I completely understand why a Republican in general would be against all forms of gun control. At least should be. There's already 20,000 laws. Why do we need another one? That's my position. In fact, my position is all those 20,000 laws, most of them need to go away. But that's a very anchored position. So when someone's a liberal Democrat and they're pro-gun control for some new gun law, I don't agree with them, but I understand why they think that way. Now, there might be in there a lot of assumptions and beliefs that are untrue. I've talked to people on the gun control issue that are like, well, we at least have to have an assault weapons ban. Well, why? Well, they're more powerful. No, they're not. The average deer rifle is way more powerful than the average AR-15. Well, there has to be. The minute when they say, well, there has to be, what they're saying is, I don't know jack diddly square root of F all about this issue, but I've made a decision based on a belief system, not factual knowledge. And you can keep going. You can look at we need to wear masks. Really? Why? Well, the Fauci says so. Okay, that's an appeal to authority fallacy. That's not a rational decision. Here's 12 studies, the first done in 1947, the last done in 2019, that clearly and conclusively show using RCTs That's a randomized controlled trial, the gold standard for a study like that show mass masking of the public does not work in preventing the spread of viral illnesses. Period. Everybody accepted this until late 2020 or early mid 2020. Everybody accepted that as scientific fact. They changed the dialogue, but the facts didn't change. Now, maybe you can find facts and logic and reason to support your decision for mass masking. Maybe you can. But again, if I give you a piece of paper, those of you that are masketeers, and say, write down everything, not you think, not somebody said, everything you absolutely know about this issue, some of you'd write some shit about some hamsters in cages on it, and that'd be about it. In other words, you don't know why you believe what you believe. Now, I want to be very clear here. You can take the alternate position to me on any of these issues and any other issue that we go into. You know, is Biden wrong for not interfering with Russia in the Black Sea? Honestly, my gut is, as much as I dislike Biden, I don't want to jack around with Russia and start a conflict over Ukraine. Ukraine is not my concern. Ukraine is not my business. I have no vested interest in the Ukraine. And the people that are like, but he had illegally annexed Crimea. Well, did you know that there was an election, or actually a vote in Crimea? And the Crimean people were offered a choice: return to the Russian Federation or remain in the Ukraine. Did you know that? If you didn't know that, then you wouldn't know that 95% of the people in that vote voted to return to Russia. Do we have a right to tell other people what to do with their own country, their own land, their own property? Do we? I don't think we do. When we look at the South China Sea and China, it's a different world. It's a different world. You have a nation that's an ally to the United States in Taiwan that we are legally obligated by treaty to defend. Oh, we're legally obligated to defend Ukraine too, aren't we? Should we be in an entangling alliance like that? Did you know that, like, one of the primary founders of the United States of America, Thomas Jefferson, said that we should not be involved in entangling alliances? Did you know that? See, it doesn't matter how you come down on the decision. I'm just asking you, do you know these things? And anybody listening to this who's triggered about all this now, the reason you're triggered by it is you don't know. Now, if you're thinking, well, he doesn't know this, and this about this issue, great. Okay, and if you can prove those things to me, I might change my position. My question to you is, do you know those things? Or did somebody tell you those things? Do you believe those things, or do you know those things? Or do you think they're true, and you think they're true, but the preponderance of the evidence that you've actually examined, right, leads you to the conclusion that they're true? All of those are possibilities. So to me, the process is, the first thing that you do in a situation is you weigh. First of all, the first thing you should ask yourself is, do I get a say in this? Do I get a say in this? Let's look at the crypto market. Well, Coinbase went public. I don't like that because I'm a crypto anarchist. Do you get a say in whether Coinbase goes public or not? Does your opinion or your tweet or your share on float, does it prevent that? Does it encourage that? If I think it's good or bad, does that change anything? No. Then your decision needs to move not to whether this thing's good or bad, but what do you do in response to it? So the first thing is, do you have any control over it? The second question is, does this affect you? There's so many people worried about so many effing things that do not affect them in any way. This thing that you're so worried about does not have an impact on your life. Move on. Worry about something else. Like, you got to get through those first two. Then we've determined that either I can influence this or it does impact my life. Now we have to make a decision about either what we're going to do or what we think, and probably both. Because I can come to the conclusion that I don't like this thing happening, but this thing is going to happen anyway and I can't stop it, but maybe I can benefit from it. See, if you're logical and rational, that's where you go. If you're irrational, you start saying stupid crap like, we're going to fight them and hold them accountable and punish them at the ballot box. No, you're not. You're not going to fight them. You're not going to hold them accountable. You're not going to punish them at the ballot box. You're not. If it's a political thing, you're not going to do any of that. You're not ever, never, ever going to do any of that. When have you held them accountable in the past? You have a zero track record of holding anybody in government accountable for anything in your adult life, but now you're going to do it next time. This is because you've left the world of rational, logical thought and you've gone into the world of emotion and response. You are a perfect example of what Vin Armani calls the dim age. You are being led by emotion, and hence you are being led by some sort of talisman. This false belief that something that you're going to do is going to change some other thing. You control one person in this world fully. That's you. Your mind, your heart, your soul, your being. That's all you control. So you better get 100% control over that being, because it's the only one you can have. So when you hear something and it immediately angers you, stop. Just stop. Just relax. I know it's still there, but you need to relax. Humans cannot make good decisions in an emotional state. So you have to back off the anger, and then you have to say, what do I know about this? And again, most people will have a piece of paper like this if they write everything they know on it. Nothing on it. Zero. So then you have to start researching it. And let me tell you how I research a thing. When I was in school, I'm talking high school here, I was in debate, and I had a speech class where we had to debate as well. And we would get an issue. Is hunting good or bad for the animal population? Not even, is hunting good or bad for, is it okay to kill animals? Just, is it good for the population of animals in the state? Really, you're going to ask me that? Because I'm ready for that. Yeah, but what would happen is you would be told this is your issue. Now, what you have to do is you have to prepare. Next Tuesday, you're going to come in, you're going to debate Bill on this issue. Maybe Bill and I agree on this issue. Yeah, it doesn't matter. On Tuesday, when you come in, I will tell you what position you have to take in your debate. Whoa. So I might have to say that it's not good for the population of animals. Yep. But I don't believe that. Doesn't matter. You're going to have to research both sides of this issue. You're going to have to come up with every valid talking point, every logical reason, even every emotional plea to try to make your case for your side of the debate. And you know what that makes you really good at? Having to do that over and over and over and over and over again. It makes you really good at making rational, informed choices. It also makes you really good at debating others. Because if you game this out, in high school, or I guess college has debate teams or whatever, you might have to deal with that. You might have to deal with coming up and debating someone and taking a position counter to your own. That's only training, though. That's only teaching. What it does is when you now have to make a decision and you might have to debate that thing in the future, you've gamed out the other side's argument. You know the majority of the arguments that are going to be made by the other side. And you know exactly how to kill them, if you can. That's really important. Can you kill them, or can you counter them with rhetoric, and can you counter them with emotion, and can you counter them with fallacy that doesn't sound like fallacy? You might have to do that in a debate like this, but then you recognize it when the other side's doing it. It requires you to actually know what the F you're talking about. And what you'll find is you'll be much more centered on most things than most people if you start doing this. Because you'll realize that both sides do have some issue points. They do have some facts on their side. And then you'll have to rationalize, okay, so which side outweighs the other side in probability? You want me to give you an example. These vaccines that they call vaccines that are gene therapies. I'm sorry, that's what they are. They're not vaccines. I look at this rationally this way. Are there people that might benefit from this? Sure. Might they work? Sure. Might the side effects be less in percentile than the disease itself measured on a whole as far as the dangers from the disease? Maybe. The answer to all of these things right now is I don't know. I've looked at the technology, and I think it is fascinating technology to make specific vaccines for fighting things like specific cancers. In other words, Bill comes in, Bill has cancer XYZ. They actually use Bill's own material to build a vaccine that will help. It's not really a vaccine, though, is it? They're building a gene therapy that goes back into Bill that produces antibodies that fight that specific type of cancer. That's fascinating. And if I was, at serious risk of death from a cancer, I would be all in on trying that. That makes sense. If I was an older person that had a severe risk of death from this disease, I don't know what I would do, but I know that I would be more likely to consider getting the vaccine. Maybe. I'm not in that position. I can't really know. There's going to be an emotional play in there somewhere. For me, 48 years of age, in good health, having lost all the weight that I have, taking proper supplementation, fully understanding the disease, being on zinc and quercetin, knowing that my freaking cells are loaded with zinc, believing there's a high probability I already had this damn illness, knowing that the innate immunity is as high as 50% in the country as it is, knowing that the death tally is all based on a lot of people who would have died anyway, knowing all these things, when I look at it, I'm not saying the vaccine definitely will kill people. I don't know that. I know the vaccine has killed some people. What's the probability it will kill me or seriously injure me? I don't know. What I do know is my odds of surviving COVID, if I haven't already have it, and if I get it, is about 99.98%. So to me, the unknown nature of the vaccine outweighs the benefit of the vaccine. Therefore, I refuse it on logic and reason and common sense. But I actually know all the things that I told you about it. I don't think them, I know them. I understand them fully, and then I've made a fully informed, rational decision. Might someone in my position know all those things, know some other things, and come to a different conclusion? Yes, and I'm okay with that person making that decision. I'm okay with that person making that choice. It's their life. They have every right to make it. But you don't have a right to make a decision for me in my life. And when you start things like, but then you can spread the disease, you might have it and not know it. Actually, Anthony Fauci, who's like the people, everybody cites this guy, right, has said that you have a higher probability of having the disease and not knowing it with the vaccine and might still be able to spread it. So you still have to wear a mask and social distance. Okay, so now you're appealing to authority. You're using a fallacy and you're coming to an illogical conclusion that I reduce my potential to give somebody else the virus by getting a vaccine that doesn't make sense for me. If you're a frontline healthcare worker, I don't know that I would do it if I were you, but I understand why you would. You're getting constantly exposed. Now, I'm also thinking, I don't care how many masks you wear and shit. If you've been working with COVID patients for as long as this thing's been going on, you've either developed immunity or had COVID. Or you've developed immunity by having COVID at such a mild rate that you didn't know it. I don't think you're going to see many more frontline workers who have been working with COVID patients for months come down with COVID. It's called natural immunity. Natural immunity is a thing. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but it is. There's so many things packed into that decision. And I probably shouldn't even have brought it up. I probably shouldn't have made this part of what we were talking about today because I should have stuck this to the process. But to me, we have to put the process to work in a place that's controversial to really see how it works. So we figure out all the information that we can know, everything that's knowable. We figure out all the things that are like not knowable, but the preponderance of evidence is X. And then we put those two things together and we do a risk-reward ratio or a does-it-matter ratio or does this benefit me ratio for ourselves, and then we make a decision. And you know why most people won't do it? Because they're fucking lazy. That's why. Some of you listen to this, I don't want to do all that. I just want somebody to tell me. You know what? If I'm buying a car and picking between two models and I know a guy that's an expert in cars, I'll call him up and say, hey, should I get car A or car B? And I'll really most likely come down on whatever he says, especially if he tells me why. But I got to get to car A and car B on my own. I got to get that far. I got to know what I want. Because if you call up a guy that knows a lot about cars and say, well, what car should I buy? He's going to say, well, what do you like? What are you going to do with it? Like, you have to make a lot of these decisions for yourself. And then I also need to know enough about cars to know that this guy's really not an expert. He just got a job working for the government for 40 years. And he's going to say whatever the hell advances the agenda that a bureaucrat wants to advance. Right? I need to know that. That requires time and it requires effort. And that's why they just spent the last 30 years doing everything that they could through our education system and our media to make the American people, and I'd say the entire Western world of people, as mentally fucking lazy as they can. But you are a thinking, breathing being. You are a spiritual being. You are more than just your body parts. And you have a choice. You can stay the fuck asleep, or you can wake the fuck up and start learning how to make decisions for yourself. I'll catch you next week.